A 37-year-old American banker vanishes during a solo sailing trip in Spain. His passport, clothes, they're found abandoned, but at first there's no body until weeks later when his remains wash ashore. We have a family who is left devastated with a lot of questions about why it took so long for Spanish authorities to tell the family that this man was dead. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Grant Barr, a 37-year-old New York banker, was out in Spain's Costa del Sol. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It is absolutely gorgeous. And what should have been a fun, relaxing coastal getaway has now turned into a tragedy. It started with Grant vanishing without a trace. It leads to a frantic search. A body mysteriously washes ashore, and a grieving family is apparently left in the dark for weeks. We're going to head back to January 28th in Estepona, Spain. A rising star at BNY Mellon was supposed to be enjoying a sailing trip to heal from a painful breakup. This is according to a report from Euroweekly. But then what happens? His pants, passport, and boating license were found abandoned near the shore. No wallet, no phone, no signs of a struggle, just gone. So as you can imagine, his family is panicking. His brother, James Barr, posted desperately to a Facebook group for expats in Spain, pleading for help. Hello, friends. I'm hoping you could all help my family locate my brother, Grant Barr, who went missing some 21 days ago. He was last seen in Estepona, and it is possible he's still in the area. We're working with several agencies, both in Spain and the U.S., but there's no substitute for eyes on the ground. I am attaching a recent photo from December, as well as my contact info. Any information is greatly appreciated. And for weeks, Grant's loved ones scoured Spain. His brother James flew overseas, being the family's eyes and ears on the ground. Was Grant hurt? Was he kidnapped? And to make matters worse, according to the family, Spanish authorities offered little help. No updates, no real leads, just silence. And then we have March 3rd. March 3rd is when a body washed ashore near where Grant disappeared. But here's where the story takes another turn. Apparently, Spanish officials knew the body washed ashore, but didn't tell the family until over a month later. This is according to James Barr. When speaking on the efforts of the Spanish police, he told the outlet The Spanish Eye, quote, "The last time we were all there searching for Grant for 2 weeks, he was already found. However, they didn't even suggest that there was something they were looking into." For over a month, the Barrs kept searching while Grant's remains sat unidentified. It wasn't until April 4th that Grant's remains were ID'd. His father, Michael Barr, posted to Facebook, writing, "It is with profound sadness that I speak of the passing of my youngest son, Grant. Grant had been missing in Spain since January 28th. His remains were discovered and confirmed through DNA. As a father, my world will never be the same. The same may be true for all who knew and loved him. I ask God for the strength to carry on with courage and love in my heart, and I give thanks for the prayers and kind thoughts from all who knew and loved him. God bless us all." And here's the reality. We have a young man. His life was tragically cut short, little explanation, many questions still left unanswered. He was an adventurer, a skydiver, a sailor, a man chasing his pilot's license. In another post, his father wrote that Grant had a gigantic thirst for life over a photo of his son at the helm of a boat. So how did he die, right? That's the question. How did he die? Well, authorities ruled Grant's cause of death to be from drowning. But this doesn't really explain why his belongings were found separately, right? Maybe it does. There's also no explanation for what has been reported, this month-long delay in notifying the family. And Grant's family also had to wait even longer to receive his remains. His brother James told The Spanish Eye, after a week and back and forth between the courts and the coroner's office, his remains were released on Friday and we were able to cremate him and finally bring him home. Friday would have been April 11th, so over a month since Grant washed up on shore. And even more odd is the lack of response from the Spanish authorities. Was it an accident? Could it have been something else? As I mentioned, his remains were finally cremated, brought home. His brothers James and Luke shared a haunting tribute with The Spanish Eye, writing, "Our brother passed on doing what he loved, facing the sea in its magnificent beauty and terrible might. Most beloved Grant, we did not know that you were so many steps ahead of us. We will catch up to you soon and be with you in paradise." And according to Barr's LinkedIn page, he had worked for Citibank. He was currently working at the Bank of New York Mellon Corporation. The BNY team released a statement on his passing, writing, "We're deeply saddened by the passing of our colleague, Grant Barr. On behalf of Grant's coworkers and the entire BNY team, we wish to express our deepest sympathies to his family, and we will be supporting them at this incredibly difficult time." Now it's time to bring in Tom Smith, retired NYPD detective, co-host of the Gold Shield Show. Tom, thanks so much for coming on and taking the time to talk about this really, really difficult case. I mean, let's just start. What can you tell us? What do you think about the location, the condition of Grant's abandoned belongings, right? The pants, the passport, the boating license. What does that tell you?
Well, to look at this case, you have to kind of go backwards. And the one glaring thing that sticks out to me is the relationship and the breakup that he was going through and why he was there to kind of get away from that. The leaving your belongings on a beach, sometimes when people are that state of mind, is a sign of here's where I am. An easy locator for people instead of scouring the entire country looking for me. This is where I am in the case of a possible suicide. They wanted to make it easier for the families to maybe locate them. And that has been done many times before, either away or even in this country, that indicators are left of where I was. That may be a sign of this, but I think a bigger question is what was going on in his mind and his background with this breakup, I think is going to be a focal point of any investigation.
James, his brother, said he likely drowned, but didn't know where exactly his remains were found. And that sense of mystery from the Spanish authorities, that I'm not sure I follow that. Is it maybe they didn't want to tell the family because they were doing their own independent investigation? But that doesn't make sense. You have to alert the family, right?
Yeah, I don't know why that was done, and the delay in that is very puzzling because the FBI should have been involved in this and had some sort of liaison there with the Spanish government or police agency who was running it and the families to be updated on anything that comes in, especially a body, being recovered. I don't think a body is getting recovered every single day in that area. And there's probably one missing person that they're investigating. So you put two and two together. And I don't know why the family wasn't even just notified, hey, we may have some information, stand by as we conduct our investigation, but keep the FBI involved in that because it's important. He's a U.S. citizen. The U.S. and the FBI is involved in this.
So look, I think it's pretty fair to say that our content shows how important personal safety is, right? And I think that is especially true when it comes to protecting your online privacy, because you would be shocked at how much of your personal information is out there, like your address, your phone number. Do you ever wonder why you get so many spam calls and emails? That's because that information is all public. But that is where our sponsor, Incogni, comes in. This is a service that helps you take control of your online privacy by removing your personal data from data brokers, the huge companies that sell and trade your information without your permission. Incogni found so many data brokers with my information, but here's the kicker. These data brokers have to remove you from their database if you ask them to. And now you might be saying, I don't have time to just call everybody up. Well, that's where Incogni comes in. They contact these companies for you to get your online safety back. You don't have to do a thing, and then they alert you after the request has been completed. So I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. And right now, anybody who uses code Sidebar at Incogni.com/sidebar gets 60% off. That's code Sidebar at Incogni.com/sidebar for 60% off of an annual Incogni plan. How do they know it's drowning?
Well, they don't. The only indication that I can come up with my experience is if there was an autopsy conducted, there's water in his lungs and in his throat or whatever. Okay, there's going to have to be more done, or there should have been more done with any trauma to the rest of his body. I don't know if that was any information that was released, but that's also all part of it. But as far as just drowning goes, the coroner's report of just lungs, water in his lungs, is going to be the compelling factor.
The length of time that you have a body in the water, we talk about environmental factors all the time, that has to have some sort of impact. And look, I don't know anything about Spanish authorities or their forensic team, but you and I both know that that can have an effect. And I'm not sure of the waters there, but what should we be thinking about?
Yeah, that is true. Water destroys the body very quickly. Not even just the water, but everything in the water. You know, fish, other animals that take food from what the body can produce for them. So all of that is a factor when it comes to a body being in the water, and it can hamper a autopsy or an investigation. But for the most part, a lot of times when they are recovered, the correct finality of it does come out with the cause of death.
I do wonder, and again, there's little information on this, so we're just trying to piece it together. I wonder if sadly Grant's body was in a condition where he might not have been easily identifiable to Spanish authorities, and they had to do, they talked about DNA, right? DNA as the way that he was ID'd. Is that typically how it's done? Is that done in situations where on the surface you can't tell who the person is?
Sure, these days that's the only way to do it, especially when the condition of the body might be the way it was. DNA today is very quick. It can be done quickly. And in this case, we don't know if it was because of this delay, which still is very puzzling and why it took so long. But the DNA is going to be the way he was identified.
Do you usually know what kind of DNA, like what is a sample that they take from a dead body in order to identify who the person is? Do you know?
No, it could be a number of things. His tissue, his saliva, traces of I don't know if there's any blood left in him at that point, which there probably is, but all things like that. And DNA experts are experts for that reason. They can figure out which body part or what fluid they can test in order to identify them.
Do you think that there could have been jurisdictional issues at play? You're dealing with a United States citizen who dies abroad in Spain, this interplay between US and Spanish authorities. Do you think that affected any part of this investigation?
You hope not, because in the end, it's somebody's family member's dead, and that should be the paramount investigation and the focus of the investigation, not a jurisdictional nonsense. Whose is it or who isn't it? But the FBI, like I said, I hope played a bigger part in this, in the U.S. Embassy as well, in running this investigation and keeping the information flowing to the family. I don't know. The only thing I could think of, Jesse, is if they had some sort of investigation going with something else going on in that area or other crimes that were committed in that area, and they wanted to see if that was part of it. That was the only other thing that popped into my head with why there would have been a delay with releasing this.
But the fact that what we know so far, and particularly since the body has now been cremated, right? Does it signal to you that there is a conclusion, there was no foul play, there was no struggle, there was no evidence of trauma? Is that a fair conclusion based on what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I would say so. Because I think there would have been more of a dialogue if there was with the family, with the Spanish government, and possibly, the American authorities like the FBI. I think there would have been more of a dialogue if there was something that led to another crime or a crime in this circumstance.
Do they do toxicology tests on the body as well, typically?
Depends where you are. Toxicology reports take a long time. I don't know how, that part of Spain conducts any investigations. Could they have? Sure. I think it would have been smart in this case to do so because of the mystery involving his death. I think, when you have a mystery like this, you check every box you can when it comes to an investigation. And you hope it was done or it was mentioned. And if it wasn't, I'd be surprised why.
It's not the first time we've covered cases where people go missing abroad or the worst. And it makes you wonder what is the role of American authorities in that investigation? How does it usually work? Because the State Department actually released a statement. They confirmed Barr's death, according to Fox News Digital. They said they offer our sincerest condolences. How does that relationship work? How do American authorities get involved when someone goes missing abroad?
Well, agents would be sent there either from the embassy, that there are FBI personnel at the embassy to conduct investigations or be part of investigations like this. Are they going to walk into the Spanish government and take it over? No, but they want to be part of it to get the information because it is a U.S. citizen. and it is their responsibility to cover and take care of the welfare of U.S. citizens when they are in other countries, especially when crimes are committed or something like this, someone's missing. So they would play a pivotal role in this. And, the relationships I've always had in other countries was always good and respectful, and information sharing was never a problem. So I don't know where the disconnect is with this case, with the length of time in between notifying the family was, but it'd be interesting to get an answer at some point.
Because at the time of this recording, I haven't seen an answer. I mean, the Spanish authorities, the Guardia Civil and Policia Nacional, they didn't respond to, for example, People's request for comment, People Magazine's request for comment. Don't you think they should put out some sort of statement?
Yeah, they should, but they're probably not compelled to. They may be very simple of, hey, we had an accident, we recovered the body got sent back to the family, end of discussion. That's what I mean by different cultures and different, organizations, different countries and how they handle it. Everyone doesn't handle it like the United States, and that's the kind of way you have to work through those relationships of how things are conducted in that country on their end when it comes to something like this.
You had mentioned what his mindset might have been. You put that to the side. Put that to the side. Let's say this was a case where he literally went out there, went swimming, and this is just a tragedy, an accidental drowning. How often does that happen? I mean, I don't know those waters in particular, but I imagine this might happen a lot, even if he's a seasoned sailor.
Yeah, well, you just said it. You don't know, and he may not have known the different currents, the tides, any coral reefs that are on there that could have injured him. Anything around that, boating lanes. You don't know, if you're not particularly, educated on that area and the way the oceans are. Oceans can be really dangerous. I don't know how the tides are in that area at all, but it could just be very well went out for a swim, got tired, something else happened, and he couldn't get back to shore. That is definitely a possibility. A wave, a current, a tide, something like that being a factor in this. And that's what I mean by being part of the investigation. That would be a question that I would ask. What are the tides like during that time? Was it high tide? Was it low? What are the rip tides like? Are there any current issues? That's all part of questionings I would have been asked.
It's a really sad, tragic case. I mean, because you're not only just talking about a case of a missing man who then is found dead, a family is broken. You have these questions about a possible broken system. And it's tragic because there are a lot of unanswered questions. And this was a young man who had his whole life in front of him. And it ended in such a terrible, terrible way. And it's a really, really sad situation with also, you think about the family, what they went through and are continuing to go through. Our hearts and our prayers are extended out to them. Tom Smith, thanks so much for taking the time, and really appreciate you coming on here.
Always a pleasure, Jesse. Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us, and as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.